Hello and welcome to another video documenting my new Imperial Guard army for an Escalation League, Warhammer 40,000. I'm filming this, this will probably go up a couple of days after I filmed it. I'm filming this on a Friday and the league starts on next Monday. So I'm currently in earnest painting up my army. So this is the first 25 power level. I've got almost everything here except for a squad of guardsmen, which I've base coated. Haven't done anything else with them. They're not even put together. So it's going to be a bit of a squeeze. So what I'm going to go through first is I've finally just finished these guys. So I just bought a cheap box of Cadians, £6 box, just to do some tests. You can probably see some of them over in the background there, with various amounts of white and red and grey on them. So, yeah, you can see that. This is what a regular guardsman would look like. I haven't really done anything with the face. I've just put a quick daub on there just to get a rough look of what it's like. I haven't highlighted it or added any shading or anything like that. I've tried to keep it as simple as possible. In the past, I've always kind of gone for quite complicated colour schemes. And this time I've just kind of decided, you know what, I need to keep it as simple as possible, especially with the speed that I've got to put this out at. So a really simple kind of three really clear, bold colours on there with a few others, obviously. So there's that one. That's regular guardsman. Here I've got just an example of a veteran with a white helmet instead. I don't know if you can see the highlights just about on that, and some of the shading on that, which you can see very slightly on that, and the black. I'll just go through what I've used for this. Obviously this is sprayed with Chaos Black first, and then I've just used Abaddon Black to fill in any bits that have been missed out. So I've got plenty of pots of that. And then I follow up with all the armour is a base layer of Corn Red. When I was trying to figure this out, I kind of had a look around trying to decide what I wanted, and essentially just popped into my local GW and just said, look, I'm doing it black and red, probably with a trim of gold. And the guy there, the manager, he was great. Yeah, I just walked off with a bunch of stuff. So start off with Corn Red. I found it usually takes 2, sometimes 3 layers. I think the Ogrins, I think I've managed to complete this guy. So he's had, we'll see if we can get that to focus. Yeah, so this guy, 3 layers he's had in the red parts. There's still some touch-ups on the kind of metal plates at the bottom that I need to do. So I start with that. You can see on this guy, he's had 2 layers. It's not quite as good yet. It's fairly simple, slapped on. So I put the red on first, then do any cleanup I need to do with the black afterwards. And then before I put, actually I was going to show the shade that I use for that, but actually what I do next is I do all the metal. And I've used Liberator Gold for that. It's not as bright as a gold. I actually got it because I was going to test some gold armour, and this was actually meant for the highlight. But I did a few tests with I've got 3 different golds, and this one seemed to really work the best because it's quite a pale gold, so it doesn't stand out too much. And once I've got the gold on and I've cleaned up the reds and the golds, I then just everything in Carabao Crimson, and it looks great. It really ties everything together, which you can kind of see on this guy. With the gold, the gold and the red really tie together really well. and that's quite a pale gold, so it doesn't look out of place. It doesn't look too over the top, too ostentatious or anything like that. And that's Liberator gold that I've used for that. And then what I'm doing is I'm highlighting first with Wazdaka red. These are all, I think these are pretty much all named after orcs, and then followed by Wild Rider red. Just really just small highlights on just some of the top areas, so you can kind of make that out there, that there's a few bits of red, and then just really sharp on some corners and so on, just to really make it pop. And that's the basic look of it. I then just use what is Dawnstone, just to dry brush over the all the black parts, and then also around the edge of the base, and then I use Astra granite on the base, which is slightly darker. I didn't quite realise that. It is slightly darker, but I think that's fine. Just have to be a bit more careful. So around the edge first with the Dawnstone, and then that, and then I just throw some Nuln Oil in, and just put that in there, and that just really kind of makes the texture pop out a little bit more. I don't do anything else with that, which I feel looks quite good. For the white areas, I'm using Ulthuan Grey with just a little highlight of White Scar. Obviously, they won't be helmeted, as I've mentioned in the second video. They will be berets, so they will look a little bit different to that. So we'll see when I paint my commander. And hold on, I might as well show you. I haven't done anything with her yet. I still need to fix her up. Probably going to do the rest of the troops. So that's one of the statuesque miniatures heads. And she's got a little eye patch. Plasma pistol, power sword, bionic arm. Kind of like that. Still needs some touching up at the bottom. You can see under the base of the cloak it needs touching up with some black. But I'll probably do that when I do all my troops, because I'm just going to have to do them all together. I'm going to do them 10 at a time. I've got 20, but I only need one squad for now. And then for the flesh, I'm using this, sort of sold at my own one. This is equivalent of Talon, what used to be Talon flesh. I can't remember what it's called now in the new system. But that has a slightly darker, more sepia kind of burnt kind of look to it, which is great. And then I've got two different. So I've got Reichland Flesh Shade if I want something a little bit lighter, and then I've got some Agrex Earthshade for a few to make them look a bit darker. So I've got a little bit of variation. I might need to get some Cadian flesh or something like that, or another darker flesh colour, just to give it a nice kind of, I don't want everyone looking the same, give a nice bit of kind of diversity across the whole, all the different squads and so on. And then, so here I've got my Sentinel, which I've done 2 layers now on that. Probably needs a little bit of touch up. The base still needs to, you can see there, it's not as even. I wasn't sure if that was too much red at first, but actually I'm quite happy with that. And then I'll add the gold to the metal areas. And that's armed with a las cannon there. So all the kind of cowling on any guns are going to be red. To compensate for kind of the amount of red on the front of the Sentinel, on the top of the Sentinel, I've very much gone quite a bit black for the rest of it. And then I'll just have a few bits of gold. So I think I looked at the box art for this, and not very much is metal. So I've decided to go with that, but rather than having the majority of the kind of legs in like the main colour, that would just be black essentially, because I think the red should be used to kind of make it pop, which is, I think, is working really well with the Ogrins. So You can see there. It's going to go on my kind of Ogryn main guy. I think that looks pretty good at the moment. That's 2 layers. Definitely needs a little bit more. Start doing a bit of flesh on there. There's definitely some touch up to do. He's got a bit of red on him. I might put some, if I'm feeling brave and if I have time, I might put some tattoos on there. And they're armed with mauls, I think they're called. Can't remember, Bulgrim mauls, and the shields, which gives the extra +2 rather than the invuln save. If that works out or not, we'll see when I actually get first game in. I'm starting to think now that maybe I should have gone invulnerable, because there's bound to be all sorts of players who can ignore armor saves. And then I've made a start in Lemon Rust, so the Lehman Rust. So I've very much gone with all black. I still need to put the metal on, so that will add quite a bit to it and highlight that. But otherwise, it's just the weapons cowlings and just a few bits just to of red on there. I think that'll look really good. I think I might add a little bit of kind of the brighter gold in terms of kind of any kind of heraldry or anything on that, just to mark out the difference. And I might do that with the Sentinel as well. So I do have Auric Armor Gold, which is really bright and looks quite good with the red, with the crimson shade over it as well. So I can still use the same shade across all of those. Also, with the after the dry brush, I've also just splashed Nuln Oil over any of the black parts, and that really helps to tie it together. And that's turned out, I wasn't sure about it at first, but once I put that on, it really made it look great. So that's everything that I've got so far. I will quickly just show you, because we're moving up to 12 minutes now. You can see I haven't really done any highlights for this because this was just kind of testing out. This is a guy where I did kind of the tabard red as well, and I used I think that's a deeper, I think I might be using the Auric gold. And then I think one of these guys, oh no, that's the Auric gold. You can see that's a lot. That is noticeable straight away. That's the Auric gold there as opposed to Liberator gold, and that was just a little bit too much, I felt. But I think for some of the heraldry, that would look really good. And then I did think about, all red with white armor, and I think I just went with the standard kind of gunmetal kind of cut. I can't remember what it is that I've got, and that's fine. But I've painted a lot of white recently, and I wasn't in the mood to do any more. It's kind of a pain, if I'm really honest. So I think only using it for the berets of the veterans is more than enough for me. I don't want to do any more than that. So yeah, that's it. The next one will hopefully be a look at my first 25 power level at the ready. So I will wait until that one to explain exactly what I've decided to go for. It's pretty simple. There isn't anything much else to show aside from this, but I'll just go through kind of my choices, why I've picked what and why. And yeah, so if you've enjoyed this, hit subscribe, like, share, so you don't miss any more of the posts. Should be looking at a couple of videos a week, and you can also find my Tumblr, which has extra pictures and some fluff and so on, and I'll post some of the my army list and things like that, so you can see what that looks like. Okay, thank you very much, and have a good day.